This lesson is a continuation of the previous one where we have laced the legs and achieved good leg to arm position. From here, I'm ready to move to the mounted position. Once I'm ready to mount, I will drive my right knee across his belt line until it reaches the ground. As I do this, I place my forehead on the mat for base. I then remove my leg lacing hand and use it for base to protect against the oompa. My back leg conforms to his back, as if already in the mounted position. Do not allow him to grab your right foot with his right arm. Adjust your leg position if you sense your opponent attempting this. From this point, notice how my partner is balled up, almost as if in the fetal position. My goal is now to make him straight and open up his body. It is important to be patient, as rushing will cause you to lose the position. With my right hand, I will then get an underhook and place my head directly next to his. To straighten his body, 3 elements will be at work. The first is that I will mat walk my right hand to make his arm go higher. The second is that I will pull him counterclockwise with my left arm that is grabbing his armpit. The third is that I will place my head next to his and open up my head into his head. These 3 things combined will not only straighten your opponent out, but it will make him very uncomfortable. It is important to understand how uncomfortable your opponent is so that you don't get antsy and rush the mount before the situation is ready. Once I sense the timing, I will take the mount by putting my knee into his armpit and bringing my foot onto his hip as soon as possible. As I bring my foot onto the hip, I will glue it to the mat as much as possible. You must not allow him to hook under your ankle with his right foot, as he will likely escape if he is able. Here, Hodger is patient and assesses his options before securing the mount. He decides for this standard mount option and begins to drive his knee across the belt line. Hodger patiently works to touch his knee to the ground before proceeding on to the next step. It is often very crowded in this space. Notice his use of head for base here. Once his knee is on the ground, he works to pick up his opponent's arm. Notice his opponent beginning to straighten out. Hodger waits for him to uncross his legs before securing mount to minimize his chances of his ankle being scooped up by his opponent's right leg. Though I gave you 3 tools for straightening your opponent out, you may often find that they are all not needed. In this technique, I have managed to lace my opponent's legs, but he is aggressively attempting to break my lacing arm by scissoring his legs. This is a common reaction at all belt levels. In the previous technique, he was positioned into the fetal position and I needed to straighten him out prior to mounting. In this variation, he is already straightening himself by resisting my leg lace so strongly. To complete mount from this position, I first wait a few moments to see if he will continue trying to break my leg lace by scissoring his legs. If he stops, I return to the previous technique. If he persists, I prepare to step over his legs and my arm by adjusting my back leg position slightly. I then step my right leg completely over my own arm and his legs. From this point, I have 2 things that must happen simultaneously. I must glue my foot to his hip and underhook his arm just above the elbow. As I stabilize the position, I walk his arm higher with my underhook. This will minimize his chances of escape. Be careful not to armbar yourself with this variation. Here, Hodger uses a slight variation of the step over mount. Once he secures the leg lace, notice his opponent's 2 attempts to aggressively scissor his legs to break the leg lace. Here. Notice the patience that Hodger is using, and here's the second. Noticing the desire to straighten out his own body, Hodger removes the leg lace, pins the upper leg down, and steps over into mount.